Folks, because it is Friday, we often, at the later part of the show, turn to matters aside from politics. We're going to sort of do that, but not entirely, because I often talk about movies, sports, pop culture, history, whatever, you name it, physical fitness. And we are going to talk about movies, and we're going to talk about Valentine's Day movies, but unfortunately, and I really truly mean this, unfortunately, right now it's almost, I think, impossible to talk about movies in Hollywood without talking about politics. That is all too often the case lately, but particularly today because of the controversy that is swirling around Gina Carano, who has been fired from Star Wars, or at least I guess she wasn't officially hired, but certainly invited to not return, if I'm going to put it in polite terms. To help me break down this topic is Jacob Airy. He's a frequent guest on our show, a friend of the Steve Cortes Show. He is a media critic and really, I think, just puts out some of the best work out there, both in terms of just his actual, his work as a reviewer of movies and pop culture, but then also in terms of some of his thoughtful pieces like the one that he just put out about more, well, I shouldn't say more important, but how about this, more current events related articles, issues like this one. So Jacob Airy's newest article, which you can find at StudioJakeMedia.com, that's StudioJakeMedia.com, is Disney caves to whiny SJWs, social justice warriors, and fires Star Wars actress Gina Carano. So, Jacob, can you explain to us quickly, if you would, who is Gina Carano, and then what is the relevance here of her? Why is it important to our audience, even if they're not in the Star Wars series? Why is it important to them that she got fired for her political views?
Well, to start, Gina Carano, she's a former MMA star. She was a champion, really good at that craft, and she transitioned over into films, and she was in the Fast and Furious franchise. She worked with Steven Soderbergh, and then she made the transition into the Star Wars universe on The Mandalorian, which is, of course, produced by Lucasfilms via Jon Favreau. And there had been some arguments because she had taken sort of a stand about how masking works as far as when sort of the protests happen with Antifa here in Los Angeles and also, I believe, in Chicago and other places where people weren't wearing masks and they weren't social distancing. And so Gina Carano kind of floated this out there that, the virus isn't the difference between a church service and a protest, so then people accused her of being anti-masking, and it just kind of escalated from there. Anytime she said something that sort of sounded against the typical social justice warrior narrative, they would just come at her. And this last time, she posted a thing on her Instagram, which was later deleted, where she basically said that to get to the point of the Holocaust, it didn't start with just the Jews were just arrested and rounded up. It started with the Nazis taught the Germans to hate the Jews. That's how it started. Right. And people were calling her anti-Semitic because she kind of compared it to the political rhetoric of today, or this post she did. I don't think she actually wrote the post. Right. And people were making the argument she shouldn't have made the comparison to the Holocaust, and that's a fair point. Right. But SJWs were calling it anti-Semitic. They started a trending hashtag, fire Gina Carano over it, and Disney did cave a person who claims to be a spokesperson for the company through, I think specifically for Disney Plus, which is where the Mandalorian streams. Right. They called the comment abhorrent and unacceptable. And like I said, if you want to say that the comparison to the Holocaust, one of the greatest tragedies of all mankind, was kind of extreme, I totally understand that logic, but what she said was not, in fact, anti-Semitic. She was just making a connection to the political rhetoric. Yes. And that is how it started. And
Jacob, I think that's such an important point. If I can start to interject, but if I can just say this, listen, as somebody who lives in front of microphones and TV cameras, okay, I think comparisons to the Nazis are almost never appropriate, okay? It just, they almost never work. I think that you should, if you're a professional communicator, and to some extent she is, she's not in politics, but, she's an actress. you should leave those aside. So I think it was ham-fisted. Okay, what she posted. Having said that, if anything, it is not only is it not anti-Semitic, it's actually very pro-Jew. In other words, what she's saying is this was the way in which the Nazis were able to pull off this atrocity, right? In other words, that they didn't have the numbers just themselves, sort of the true believing evil Nazis. But what they did is they convinced a lot of, seemingly well-meaning Germans to hate Jews and then assist them in this systematic outrage, of the Holocaust. So, I mean, again, it's twisted. I think it was awkward. I think she shouldn't have posted it, but the idea that she should be canceled, that she should be fired over it, or be accused of being anti-Semitic, if anything, but tell me what you think, Jacob. If anything, I think it was a message in favor of the oppressed, right? In other words, of saying you should not be demonized just because there's something different about you, including political differences.
Right. It was basically a point that we shouldn't other one another in that regards. And the irony of all this is the SJWs proved her right. They got her chased out of her job, and there were rumors that she was supposed to highlight a spinoff of The Mandalorian. Of course, that's now off the table. And I'm curious how far this is going to affect Disney in the long run, because Disney had already had trouble kind of attracting those old school Star Wars fans to their newer stuff, and The Mandalorian was definitely a bridge to that, especially with this last season. And I feel like they kind of burned that goodwill, because she was a fan favorite of the series. In fact, her toy was the second top-selling toy that came from the Mandalorian toy line. Right.
No, you make such a good point there, by the way, about they proved her wrong by proving her right, right, in a sense.
Yeah, exactly.
In this crazy, twisted logic. Also, how about this, the idea that, like, are we to be shocked that an MMA fighter, because MMA fighters and their fans, by the way, are probably one of the most pro-MAGA constituencies out there in the entirety of America. Like, are we to be so shocked that she has some right-wing views that have no relevance, by the way, to what she does on screen? None at all. But apparently that is shocking to a lot of people in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, and there are stories of people who are more conservative in the entertainment industry. They're just afraid to speak out.
Sure.
That sometimes their stuff kind of leaks into their work, but they don't know how to do it in an artistic way, so they have to do it very subtly, because there's such a hostility toward anything that's even really considered moderate, forget conservative.
Sure.
And to be fair to Gina Carano, one of the reasons people speculate she's conservative is on Twitter she has liked comments from conservative personalities, but she herself has not made an endorsement as far as candidates, or even said, hey, I'm a member of the GOP or whatever. Right. It's just the SJWs are forcing that on her, sure. And I really think that it was an unfair judgment.
Yeah, you're guilty. If you didn't put your pronouns in your bio, you're guilty, unfortunately, to a lot of these folks. But okay, listen, we're going to continue the conversation, still continue talking about media, but let's do it in a more favorable light, which is let's talk about some movie recommendations for Valentine's Day, which is coming up this weekend. That is a reminder for anybody out there who's being lazy and late. Get your present for your sweetie, because Valentine's Day is coming up on Sunday. More with Jacob Airy. And welcome back. We are speaking with Jacob Airy, who is a film reviewer and really just a media critic in general. Find him at StudioJakeMedia.com. He's a frequent guest on the show. It is Valentine's Day weekend coming up, and we're going to get some Valentine movie recommendations from Jacob. I am certainly not a movie reviewer, but I've seen I don't even want to say a lot of movies, because my kids make fun of me that I've seen nothing according to them. But in terms of a Valentine movie, in terms of a romantic movie that I think is sweet, not super well known, but if you haven't seen Return to Me, it's from the year 2000 with David Duchovny and Minnie Driver. It is Chicago centered. I'm such a Chicagoan. I'm such a homer. By the way, it also has Carol O'Connor, Archie Bunker, who is really kind of fun, not a major role in the movie, but fun in it. And the main thing, I'll confess, the main reason I love the movie, I shouldn't say loved, the main reason I like the movie and find it entertaining is that they run an Irish pub, Minnie Driver and her father, Carol O'Connor, do, and it's called O'Reilly's, but it is actually Twin Anchor in Lincoln Park in Chicago, which I think is the greatest ribs on the planet Earth, and also wonderful people, and I love Twin Anchor. Hence, I also kind of love this movie, Return to Me. And it's a sweet romance story about somebody with a transplant heart finding each other. It was her ex-husband, not ex, but her deceased husband, who donated the heart unknowingly finally to her, now new lover. It's kind of one of those neat stories. But Jacob Berry, you're the pro, so you tell us, Valentine movies, what do you recommend? What would be, and it's going to be frigid in Chicago. We're very jealous of you in Los Angeles, so people might stay inside. What kind of a movie selection would you recommend?
Well, I would start out with The Lake House. It came out in 2006. It stars Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, and it's a little saccharine, but it's about a guy and a woman, and they own the same house at different points in time. So I think one is 2004 and one is 2007, and they have like this magic mailbox where they can write letters to each other on this property. And it's just a really good movie. And, of course, I bring it up because the late, great Christopher Plummer, who we lost recently, I believe last week, he is in it. He plays Keanu Reeves' character's father. It's just a really good, wholesome film about, waiting for your true love and whatnot. But, yeah, I think it's really good. It's more of a romantic drama. It has a little bit of comedy, but it focuses more on the seriousness of their situation and whatnot.
Interesting that you bring up Christopher Plummer because, of course, and I think I mentioned this to you before when you've been on, The Sound of Music is the greatest movie in all of history, and anyone who disagrees is some sort of a sick psychopath as far as I'm concerned. Not that I want to be too extreme about that, but and I thought about saying Sound of Music, but it's not really a romance movie because there's so much else going on. The romance is clearly part of it, but it's not. I wouldn't put it in the Valentine category, but Lake House. Okay, Jacob Berry, give us another one, please. What's another Valentine Day movie or Valentine Day weekend movie pick?
I would recommend Last Chance Harvey. It stars Dustin Hoffman and Emma Thompson, and Hoffman plays Harvey, who's this guy who he just loses everything. He loses his job. His daughter's getting married, but she wants her stepfather to give her away, and he's literally just stuck in London, and he runs into this airline worker, and she just kind of shows him around London, and he develops kind of a new zeal for life and realizes what's really important. And it's just a really good, calming movie. It's got a lot of romance in it, and I highly recommend it. It's to me, it's very underrated. It didn't have a really big premiere when it came out in 2008, but I think it's good. I highly recommend it. Very wholesome, very good perspective on romance and love.
Okay. Well, listen, really appreciate it. So, listen, again, I want to promote your article because I just think it's great. And I also think that it's terrific that you are brave enough as somebody in the industry, somebody physically there in the Los Angeles area, willing to take a stand and write an article as you did. Disney caves to whiny SJWs and fires Star Wars actress Gina Carano, StudioJakeMedia.com. Is that the place to go to find out everything about you and your work, Jacob?
Absolutely, StudioJakeMedia.com.
Appreciate it very much. Jacob, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And again, we are extremely, extremely jealous because it is going to be really frigid, like 0 degrees here. So enjoy sunny Southern California.
Thank you, and you have a good weekend as well.